Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 6 is proposed ordinance 2012-0318 relating to King County District Court electoral district boundaries for 2012.
The electoral district boundaries for 2012?
That's correct.
All right. That is the topic of this ordinance, and when we have ordinances, we are required to have a public hearing. So I'm going to allow anyone who desires to speak to this ordinance to do so. I only ask that you respect our rules of operation and that you speak to the item that's before us, and you not speak to any issue, item, or concern of yours that is not on, that has not been discussed at that moment. With that background, I'm pleased to indicate that there are 3 people that signed up to speak on this issue. They are Mia Jacobson, Alex Zimmerman, and Sam Bellomio. Mia, you're first. Oh my God.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mia Jacobson. And we will continue to ask you for a public meeting. This is relevant to the ordinance on the agenda today because I'm speaking about the process by which the ordinance was developed. The reality of a public meeting is relevant to every ordinance because we are speaking about the process of democratic government itself. Mr. Gossett, last time I spoke, you said you would let us know when you will allow for public input that is not bound by an agenda. I'm wondering if you realize this is the first public response we have gotten from you regarding our request in the 6 months that we have been coming here. While I am happy to finally hear from you, I must admit I am concerned that it has taken this long. Is this what local democracy looks like? If you do not listen to us, how will our state senators listen to us? Is this what democracy looks like? I encourage all of you to take a step back and look at the situation without prejudice. And by prejudice, I mean prejudgment for those of you who are easily offended. There is a worldwide movement urging the government to change. A lot of people are very upset.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to rule you out of order because I gave you a little leeway, but that is not the ordinance.
Did you hear what I said?
Talking generally about free speech is not the issue that we're dealing with right now.
But if you're saying,
I need to have you speak directly to the ordinance that's before us.
Do you question the logic that I have, that it's relevant to the ordinance because it's the process the ordinance was developed?
I question it because
what's your concern?
I made it clear to you that we're asking people, as we always have done for 37 years, to speak to the ordinance before us. That's what's germane, that's what's relevant, that's what's appropriate.
So when can
Talking in general about we want to speak on anything we want to speak on is not relevant, though.
I am asking you for a meeting every month where we can speak on things that we are concerned about.
And I told you at our last meeting that we have that under advisement.
So you're saying that what I have to say is not relevant to the ordinance?
Not at this time.
But is it relevant to the reality of democratic government?
No, and your time is up.
It's not relevant?
No.
Will you explain to me why it's not relevant?
No.
Why not?
Because I'd like for you to sit down at this time.
That's not an explanation, that's a request.
I've already explained to you.
You haven't explained it to me.
You have a constitution. You know about this?
Yes, I have. Would you please be seated? Would you please be seated? All right.
Do you want me to call security?
Yeah.
What's security?
We have...
Greece.
You're representative of the public.
And I told you that you're out of order and that your time at the podium has ended.
Even my age, you were asking the government to change, remember?
Yes.
You want me, Mr. Chair, would you like to put the meeting into a recess at this time?
Yeah, we'll be at recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Sam, you can approach the podium, but as I've already indicated, you have to speak specifically to the ordinance before us. And if you do not, you will be asked to leave the podium also.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Sam Bellamere, and I'm here with StandUP-America. And since we want to talk about proposed ordinance number 2012-0138, an ordinance relating to King County District Court electoral district boundaries for 2012, and amending ordinance 16803 in section 1 as amended, I want to speak about the redistricting. Because, you know, the open agenda that Mia was speaking about, to speak about concerns that we have about electoral boundaries, when we only get this one opportunity to speak to you about it, but if, you know, your committee that brought this up doesn't even allow for people to come in and speak to them about this ordinance before it's brought before the council. We want to have time in each committee meeting where the public can come in and speak to you before you bring it to full council. So this ordinance shouldn't even be here before the people.
I want to rule you out of order, too. You're not speaking specifically to the ordinance. You're trying to figure out a way that you can take the title and talk about what you want to talk about in general.
But isn't that my right?
I'm ruling you out of order, so would you please move from the podium?
I'm speaking about the ordinance right now.
I discontinued the voice. I'd like to have you sit down.
Can I speak?
Mr. Zimmerman, only if you're going to speak to this ordinance. If you're not, I would wish that you would not waste our time.
I did that too. You told me what is I need doing.
What? No,
You told me what is I need doing. Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
The chair of the King County Council.
Yes. You mind?
And I told you this yeah.
Can I speak?
No.
Yes, I can.
You're out of order.
Thank you very much.
All right. We're on item number 6. As I recall, Madam Clerk, this is a consent item.
That's correct, Mr.
So
Chair.
at this time, I'd like to go right to you and have you call the roll. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'd like to call on Councilmember Haig to move the item.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of proposed ordinance 2012-0138 as a consent agenda item and should be ready to go for council action.
Thank you. And now, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson. Councilmember Haig.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Patterson.
Aye.
Councilmember Phillips.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reichbauer.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, no noes, and none excused.
Having received the required majority, proposed ordinance 2012-0138 is adopted. With that, we can move to item number 7. It's under our Government Accountability, Oversight, and Financial Performance Committee, and I'd like the clerk to read the ordinance into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 7 is proposed ordinance 2012-0133 relating to personal property tax administration, authorizing the assessor to waive certain personal property tax non-filing penalties that result from unreported or underreported property in assessment years 2011 and earlier, and declaring an emergency.
All right.
You have the same 3 people, I think.
Okay. Madam Clerk, you have the same 3 people signed up to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair. They signed up before the meeting.
Mia Jacobson, would you come to the podium, please? Do you plan to speak directly to the ordinance that's before us?
I plan to speak about the relevancy to the ordinance by the process by which it was developed, which is relevant to the ordinance if you want to speak about relevancy.
Proceed.
I couldn't believe that you would rule me out of order the first time. I didn't know why I should have to sign up 4 times, because there's no logical reason why you should not listen to the people that you represent. But here we are again, and you've given me no explanation as to why you think this is inappropriate.
Yeah, I've given you an explanation every week that
you've never talked to me about it, Mr. Goss, so that's part of the outrage.
Not only have I talked to you, I talked to the entire audience every week We asked
About why we can't have free public input?
Nobody's ever said that you can't have freedom of speech. We said we asked that you speak directly to the ordinance or the measure that's before us, and you refuse to do that.
It doesn't sound very free to me if you're telling me what I can say.
That's why you're causing me to read you out of ordinance.
When can we have freedom of speech and address you as our public officials?
Give us date and time.
Yeah.
I don't hear you. Date and time when we can speak.
She's giving me no response. She's giving me no reason
And
or explanation.
I told you time to talk to you at ABC.
You're not acting like a rational human being, Mr. President. You're not.
Date and time.
Mr. Chair, you'd like to go into recess? Thank you.
Ask our legal counsel, Jim Brewer, to come to the front table.
What?
Jim, you've heard members of the public consistently challenge whether or not we're allowing for free speech at this meeting on today as well as previous meetings. Would you please, to reinforce what our position is on how we conduct these meetings and whether or not it's violative of any constitutional issues relative to free speech?
Thank you. For the record, Jim Brewer, legal counsel. The legal question that's raised is whether the council's meeting is an open public forum at which a full freedom of speech rights would apply, or whether it is a limited public forum. It's a limited public forum because your rules prescribe that the purpose of public testimony is to provide information that's germane to the legislation that you are considering, as opposed to other matters that might be perfectly appropriate for a general open forum, such as open space or a park, a space where free speech on any topic is generally allowed. Here, the purpose of testimony is to gather information for you about the content of proposed legislation. You currently do not have in your rules a provision for a general open public comment on any topics that might be of interest to members of the public. So legally, you're well within your rights in terms of the proceedings of the body to require that testimony be germane and actually directly related to the testimony offered, and that is not an infringement of the rights of free speech under the federal or the Washington state constitutions.
Councilmember Phillips.
So, Mr. Brewer, is that a matter of settled law, both as a matter of U.S. constitutional and state constitutional law, that this is a limited forum in that respect and not necessarily an open forum like a public park or a public street or a public plaza?
Yes, I believe it is, Mr. Phillips.
And so that has been adjudicated at both the federal and state courts?
Legislative bodies have the authority to consistent with the Constitution, to maintain the efficiency of their proceedings and to require that the time that is spent as a deliberative body, that testimony that is offered actually be related to the subjects you're considering as legislators.
And so we were fully within our rights to prescribe what we're doing relative to our meetings?
Yes.
With no abridgment, making no law abridging freedom of speech?
That is correct.
Okay, so our chair is completely within his authority and his rights and ability to so rule others who come here for the disruptive purposes to be out of order.
Anyone, if members of the public are offering comment that in the view of the chair and the body isn't relevant or germane to the legislation, it's certainly well within the authority of the body to not allow further public speech in the context of the council meeting on matters that aren't related directly to the ordinance under consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hague.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that 2/3 of the audience in our council chambers today work on behalf of free speech and have worked through an organized process recognizing the rules that we operate on for an issue that we all care about for common good and welfare through enhancing our park system. And they are here today to speak on behalf of that issue. They have worked with us through the public process, through the committee organization, and are here today through this joint effort to what I believe will be a unanimous vote that's been worked properly, cohesively, and through our council rules. And Mr. Chair, I think that that deserves a lot of recognition, and perhaps the folks that are worried about free speech can see how major organizations can come forward in a collaborative way, in a peaceful way, for significant change through this body. And I just want to compliment the folks that are here today that have worked through a public process, and to show to the young children that are here today that this is a common good and it's a positive way to affect change. Thank you.
Excuse me, can I answer?
No, you're out of, Mr. Zimmerman, no, you can't. Wait a minute. You're out of order. Please, I'm removing you from the panel. No, I'm not allowing you to explain what you mean. No. I'd like for you all to be escorted out of the chambers. Out of the chambers. Okay. Madam Clerk, we're on recess for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Speak directly to this ordinance. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed, and I call on Councilmember Ferguson to move the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval